For far too long, the effective management of the customer's experience has been considered a soft skill. But today, successful companies recognize that the customer experience is king, or from my perspective, is queen. Welcome to CX Unplugged. I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez, your host, and in this series, you will hear from me and other industry experts about how prioritizing the customer experience led to amazing outcomes. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network. I'm Gabrielle Gonzalez, your host, and today I want to talk a little bit about reviews. We've all had them. Many of us have given them. And, I think we want to discuss what do they mean and what should we do when we get a bad one? To be honest, I came across such a well-written but horrible review of an apartment community that I wanted to share it with all of you, if not just for entertainment purposes, but to get your thoughts on what would you do if you had a review like this come through on your community? And at the end of our podcast, I'll also share a couple of tips for what I would do. And then I'd really like to continue this series. We'll also talk with maybe another person or two about other things that we can extract from this very lengthy and horrible review. But we can look at it and examine opportunities for us to improve in our industry. So bear with me. I'm just going to read it from my phone if you don't mind. Okay. So obviously I'm not going to tell you what community this is about. So it's about a particular apartment community. And this is what the writer says. Where the rent isn't the only thing that's unreasonable. It started like any other lease, hopeful, optimistic, and blissfully unaware that I was about to be emotionally mugged by a property management company. ABC Apartments used to be great until the fall of 2023, when new management took over and turned the place into a live-action satire of late-stage capitalism. Let's talk fees. They introduced a $75 per month services and amenities fee for amenities that used to be included and are now mysteriously vanishing. The coffee, tea, and water in the lobby? Gone, replaced by the bitter taste of betrayal. They forced us to switch to an independent billing agency that charges a processing fee just to pay rent. Then came the mandatory cable internet bundle for $100 a month. Cable? In 2025, I haven't watched live TV since Obama was in office. And yes, they even increased the valet trash fee, which is wild considering I still had to walk my trash out like a peasant. I told you it would be entertaining. Okay, let me continue. But the real horror, the property manager. She once asked to do a walkthrough of our apartment just to make sure there aren't any dead bodies. Ha ha. After the walkthrough, she told us our current rent would increase by $800 a month and then gave us 3 days to decide whether to stay or else the price would go up even more. Every interaction with her felt like being scolded by a sentient eviction notice. Cold, condescending, and completely disconnected from reality. Meanwhile, the new reviews online read like they were written by a bot trained on Zillow listings. So friendly, so clean. Ma'am, I live there. The only thing clean was the way they scrubbed bad reviews off the internet. Oh, the move out? Finally, sweet release from the misadventure I unknowingly dragged my family on. Little did I know that the denouement of this story still had some horror to be revealed. Ah, yes, nothing says, welcome to adulthood, like discovering your child's beloved toy, a cozy blanket, children's books, and a pillow have been yeeted into the void, without so much as a courtesy call, which could have went something a little like, hey, one of your children seemed to have put one of their things in a cabinet and you missed it on your move out. You have 5 days to come pick it up or we will have to throw it out. Apparently, they mistook sentimental value for trash and decided to charge us a $200 trash out fee for the privilege of throwing away our memories. I've attached the picture they sent me as proof that I left all this trash in the townhome. I guess the lesson here is, if you accidentally leave behind anything more emotionally valuable than a paperclip, expect it to be gone faster than your security deposit. Bonus points for tossing in children's books, because who wouldn't want to charge extra for getting rid of literacy? I have also attached pictures of our insanely dirty, not really, refrigerator, sink, stove, microwave, and oven, for which they are charging us a $200 dirty appliance fee. I'll let the internet be the real judge. So here's my honest review. Unless you enjoy paying $175 a month in surprise fees for fewer amenities, being strong-armed into a cable bundle from the Stone Age, being treated like an inconvenience with a credit score, and bonus fees that keep on giving even after you move out, then by all means, sign that lease at ABC Apartments. Otherwise, run. Run like your security deposit depends on it, because it does. And spoiler alert, you're not getting it back. Wow. Right? Like, what did you think about that? I chuckled to myself just at how well written it was, and I could relate with the customers' perspectives. So I'm really curious to hear how you, the listener, what you guys think about this particular review. You know, would you want a review like that? Obviously not. But what would you do if you got one? You know, this review brings up so many conversational topics for us in the industry to discuss. One of which, obviously, is the fact that they think it sounds like bots are writing the positive reviews based on the way the reviews are coming through, and based on maybe the inconsistency that they're experiencing with their experience in contrast to what those new reviews are saying. Also, I think it brings up a really good question about how long do we give people to make a decision when there is a rent increase? You know, how long do we give them to really process that, think about it, and decide whether or not they're willing to take it? I think another really important point that comes up in this is how do we handle items left in an apartment when people move out? This reviewer certainly felt that many of these items were very sentimental to their children and so forth. And so they felt very upset that, you know, these things were just thrown away rather than have someone making a call and letting them know they were there. I think another thing comes to mind, or another potential conversational topic, is these cable bundles. I know that's something that a lot of people in our space are grappling with, whether it's something we want to do or not do, and, you know, how to balance the potential revenue against some of the other challenges that come along with those sorts of offerings. I think another one is how we can be aware of, like this reviewer pointed out, these disappearing amenities and services. Even something as simple as the office having put fresh refreshments and snacks in the office and then taking those away. You know, how that feels to the resident versus what may have driven that decision from a management perspective. Another one that I think is really interesting that we should discuss in terms of how this can impact our customer is the security deposit. You know, what are we charging people for in a security deposit, and what's that standard practice? This reviewer also talked about how they were charged extra fees for dirty appliances. And interestingly, they did leave pictures on this review of the appliances and so forth. And As a property manager, I certainly would not have charged the resident for those things at all. So I think it's just really interesting, or not interesting. I think it's just important, rather, for us to engage in discussions about how the decisions that we're making in our corporate office or in our property are really being perceived and received by our core customer, which is our resident. And in this case, it was a total fail, it seems. So, and very well written also. Oh, which brings me to my last point that I would like to have future discussion on is, how does it make you feel when a review is written really well versus someone who's just writing maybe not as articulate a fashion, and or not quantifying, specifically what exactly their concerns are, or if they're just angry and saying sort of broad brush sweeping remarks? Like, do you respond the same or differently to those kinds of reviews? So all kinds of great things, I think, for us to contemplate as operators in terms of how we can consistently raise that bar and deliver a top-notch customer experience. So for today, what I wanted to focus on is this notion of charging fees at move out. And I think it's really important because one of the things that I always used to teach my teams was that, the move out, the whole customer journey, right? It begins when your prospect is looking for an apartment, and it starts while they're, maybe hearing word of mouth, or they are researching on the internet. So that experience needs to be good, starting there, all along that journey from leasing the apartment to moving in to experiencing maintenance, to experience maybe resident social activities, experiencing your amenities, all the way through that move out. So once they move out, there's still that one last opportunity for us to really wow our customer, right? So it's really, really important that we are very intentional about the way that we manage that last piece of the resident experience. And when it comes to charging folks for move outs, I know that different people and different companies obviously have differing perspectives on this. My personal opinion is that we should not look to our security deposit as a form of ancillary revenue. Our security deposit is really there just for that, if there are damages. And the way I like to look at damages is that this is something that has been done over and above normal wear and tear. When you lease the apartment to somebody for a year, certainly our expectation is that they will treat the appliances and the apartment itself well, but there is wear and tear. I wouldn't think that you would, move somebody into an apartment without having it cleaned, regardless of how well the prior resident left the apartment, right? For a new person, you're going to have it professionally cleaned. That doesn't mean that the past resident should pay for that. They should be expected to leave it relatively clean, but anything that you would be paying somebody to clean, for example, if it's dusty, the cleaner is going to clean the dust on a standard clean that you're going to be, using, or standard clean that you're going to be having done for the new resident to get that unit market ready. So I'm not going to charge the past resident for dust. If there are one or two light bulbs out, this is something that happens with normal wear and tear. So I'm not going to charge my past resident for 2 light bulbs, because also the way that comes off is, that you're really nickel and diming them for every little piece, which again leaves a little bit of a bad taste in someone's mouth. And you can imagine if you're on the receiving end of that, you feel like you've maybe just paid $1,500 a month, for example, in rent for a year, maybe 2 years. And then when you move out, you get a bill that says, we've deducted from your security deposit $10 for 2 light bulbs. I mean, just the subtle messaging and implication tied to that is a little bit devaluing from a customer perspective. Because again, there is a certain cost of doing business when you're in multifamily operations. So I wouldn't charge them for the light bulbs. I wouldn't charge them to have to do a basic, wipe down and clean in a refrigerator, or a basic wipe down and clean on a range or a microwave. These are things that we expect to have to do because there was normal wear and tear in that apartment from the prior resident. And that's what we expect. Now, if there is a big hole punched in the wall, someone maybe got angry and punched a hole in a wall or a door and it's completely damaged and needs to be replaced, or someone, maybe they didn't get angry and do that. Maybe they just were moving furniture and they bumped, the leg of a chair right into the wall and it made a big hole, and that's got to be repaired. Now, that is something that's maybe a little bit more excessive wear and tear that we may charge them for. So hopefully that explains or gives a general idea of my perspective on charges at move out. Certainly, if there were utility fees that, were only billed in arrears, so they are legitimately their utility fees through the date that they moved out, that would come out of the security deposit. But kind of going back to this particular review, they showed a picture where underneath one of the cabinets were a couple of blankies and a children's book. So it wasn't garbage. It wasn't anything, like hazmat has to come in and touch it or anything. It was just a couple of blankets and a book. And you could tell that it had been left there accidentally. They'd overlooked it. So in this case, to charge them a $200 trash out fee for those items would be excessive, in my opinion, and would suggest that maybe someone is trying to utilize their security deposit revenue trying to create an ancillary revenue source through that security deposit income. And I just don't think that's a good idea. So I know that there are varying perspectives on this matter, but I just want to say from a customer experience perspective, I just don't think it's a good idea. And again, I am not saying that we never charge people for legitimate damages done to a unit. But I think you really have to think about what the messaging and implication is to that particular resident when they move out before you decide to charge them. If they've had a great residency and done everything right and had a great, they've been great residents, they're able to refer many people, give you a positive review, and then you charge them, $10 for 2 missing light bulbs and a cleaning fee because, they didn't have a professional cleaner come in and clean their appliances. There maybe were some crumbs on the counter and so forth. I think that decision could really cost you and undermine that entire investment in that relationship that had been made by you and your entire team for the duration of that person's residency. So I really want you to think about it like that. And I'm really curious about your thoughts on this review, and any further discussion to be had, and your thoughts on my opinion about the security deposits as well. I'm happy to engage in a deeper dive discussion on that, but I just wanted to throw that out there for you today as a little tidbit and something to really get your juices flowing and to ask yourself, what standards are you applying to that move out process? And, a variety of other discussions that can come out of this very well written, but very poor review. So that's it from me today on CX Unplugged. I've enjoyed sharing some time with you and can't wait to hear your responses and your reactions and your comments and chat more about it. Keep on making other people's lives fantastic through your work in property management. And I hope you'll join me next time on the next episode of CX Unplugged on the Multifamily Media Network. Bye for now.
CX Unplugged, where we have redefined who your customer really is. Join me next time to hear more missteps and masterful manifestations in the world of multifamily customer experience. Brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network.